You've spent your whole career saving for retirement. Now it's time to finally spend your hard-earned money. The thing is, after a lifetime of saving, how do you transition from saving to spending? Transitioning into retirement is the start of some well-deserved R&R. Studies show that you can expect to spend less in retirement than your working years. But your spending patterns may still not be the same as the national averages.
In retirement, I've seen way too many people spend way too much money. Now, why do I say that? Well, a lot of folks say, well, when I get to retirement, I'm only going to need maybe 60 or 70% of my work income when I get to retirement. I've always argued against that. I think you need about 150% of your working income when you're retired. Why do I say that? Think about your weekends. On Saturday, do you spend more than you spend on a Monday? Of course you do. Well, when retirement comes, every single day is a Saturday. We want to be able to do what we want to do and do it when we want to do it without having to ask permission. That is vitally important. But a lot of people don't realize this. They get to retirement because they've been told they only need 70% of their income to retire. So when I usually hear that, though, is when they're with a broker and the broker loses some money on them and the broker says, don't worry, you don't need all that money in retirement. I argue with that. Anytime you lose money, it puts you behind. So never lose money. Always aim for 150% of what you're making, and then you can retire comfortably, never having to ask permission for anything.
Some advisors talk about the go-go years, slow-go years, and the no-go years in terms of spending in retirement. But does the amount you spend in retirement fluctuate depending on which phase of retirement you're in? And if so, does that spending typically occur earlier or later in retirement?
The early versus later retirement spending is something we always get questions on. So everyone thinks they should front end load their retirement and then reduce it. But when you have rising budget sheet items like pharmaceuticals and you have the health concerns, we see that budgets are normally pretty consistent through retirement in the early years and in the later years. It goes from less fun to more need-based, but that is something that is not as impactful or great to plan for because it normally naturally just doesn't occur that way.
So whether you'll spend more or less in retirement will depend on your unique circumstances and your specific situation. A better question is, how much money should you have saved for retirement?
How much you should have saved for retirement is 100,000% relative. I mean, you can have 20 million and spend 4 million a year and it's not going to work. You could have 100,000 and spend 1,000 a month and you're fine. It all is 100% relative. It all looks at Social Security, pensions, the tax coding of your assets, but it all comes down to your standard of living and what makes you comfortable.
How much you need to comfortably retire will typically vary from one person to the next, and largely depends on the plans you have for retirement.
The components of a spending/budget plan are always going to be the same, like your basic necessities, going out to eat, travel, mortgages, and then of course the healthcare, Medicare costs, the things that don't really fall off the budget sheet items. But then you got to account for more standard of living, the shopping, the travel, the rising gas prices, inflation. That's where we kind of go in, and I always like saying this, don't do a budget sheet. I know Coach Dave Ramsey, everyone loves him, but knowing your baseline is great. But I want to know the standard of living. Go to the debits column. Don't categorize, don't factor, don't say this happened once. Do the yearly average or the 6-month average. That's going to tell you the true standard of living.
We've learned a few valuable tips about building that spending plan and a few rules of thumb to benefit retirees of past, present, and future. Now for the recent retiree. A few of these concepts might be new.
The most outdated rules about retirement planning are always going to be the $1 million living on 4% a year. $40,000 a year taxable is not going to work for most people.
Some misconceptions I've seen about retirement, well, here's one big one, is that I've heard too many people say it to not know that someone must be spreading this around. Coach Pete, I only really need to worry about the first 10 years of my retirement because that's when I'm going to be most active. After that, I'll be fine. Well, what if you like to continue to do things, but you're 10 years into retirement, now you don't have enough money to do it? What if a big wrench gets thrown into your plan and you have a health event? See, that's one thing a lot of people don't plan for. Planners are so busy trying to get your money, they forget to tell you how to use it the right way.
They talk about a retirement crisis, the baby boomer dilemma, like Tom Hegna mentions. There's a lot of concerns out there because people aren't saving enough. But the other side is people are naturally living / working longer. So a retirement isn't just the age 60, the age 65, the age 70. There's so many moving parts. There's age discrepancy between spouses. There's different income and spending needs. Pensions still exist for a lot of people. Social Security is not what it used to be. There is no golden numbers anymore. That standard $1 million retirement or living off 4%, all of that honestly has been outdated for close to probably 2 decades.
We all have a spending plan, whether we know it or not. It's important to be mindful of where your savings are going while preparing for your financial future and building for retirement. If you have your own questions about spending plans or you need someone to look over your retirement portfolio, come meet with Coach Pete and the fiduciary planning team at Capital Financial. Take advantage of the no-cost, no-obligation financial review to understand the ins and outs of your retirement plan. Contact us today. Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more retirement help.